record this live lecture, okay? All right, it's Friday. It's March 9th, 2018. This is English 120, and we are going to get started here. Okay, so let's go ahead and review a little bit about what we're doing this week. So if we take a look, I'm going to pull up our syllabus. So you guys should be able to now see our syllabus packet. And we're just reviewing a little bit about week 6. And as you guys know, I've extended your assignments that were normally due Wednesday until tonight. So you have until tonight to view the Introduction to Rhetoric PowerPoint, to read the rhetorical analysis packet, and to take the quiz on those concepts, as well as contribute to the discussion. So I know some of you have probably already done that, but you have until tonight. And then you have until Sunday to submit a basic outline of this next essay. And so the focus of today's lecture is just to kind of go over some of those rhetorical analysis concepts and talk a little bit about the assignment that's due Sunday, just so you guys feel comfortable and you understand what I'm looking for, okay? So, and then next week, just to kind of look a little bit ahead, next week you guys will be studying how to review quoting sources using MLA, and you'll be getting some feedback from me on your outline of Essay 2. You'll have an opportunity for extra credit to reflect on that feedback. And finally, next Sunday, a week from this Sunday, you'll be submitting the rough draft of the next essay. So today we're just going to kind of review what that essay is about, what I'm looking for, and just see what questions you guys have so far, okay? And so we're going to go back to our Canvas course. Okay, so if we go into our modules, we should be able to go down to week 6. And as of this morning, you are now able to get into week 6 and week 7. I've made both of those available now. So you can look at this week and you can also look ahead next week if you want, okay? So the PowerPoint breaks down some things in a more visual way that's maybe more fun to look at. But let's take a look at the rhetorical analysis packet, which actually is the thing that kind of really goes over some of the things you need to know for this next essay. And so right now, you guys should all be able to see the rhetorical analysis packet in front of you. I'm sharing that on my screen. Can you just go ahead and type in yes or no and let me know if you're able to see this handout that I'm reflecting for you guys. Excellent. Thank you very much for responding. Okay, so basically, you guys have now read 3 articles about how television has been impacted by technology and social media. And you guys are going to have to write about one specifically, which is Greenfield, From Wasteland to Wonderland. You have to choose that article to write a rhetorical analysis about. And eventually, you guys will get to see student sample essays written on the other 2 articles that you read, just so that you have an idea of what you're supposed to be doing. But one of the first things you're going to do is just kind of review this packet to figure out, like, what are some of the elements of an argument? Did Greenfield include these elements, and did he do a good job? So the first page just kind of breaks down, well, what's a claim? A claim is any sort of argument that appears in his article. What kinds of evidence does he use? Does he interview people? Does he include statistics? You know, things like that. Does he acknowledge the other side of the argument at all? Okay, those are just a few examples. Okay, we can also try to figure out who Greenfield's target audience was. Who do you think he was writing for? Was it producers? Was it television viewers, you know, specifically? Okay. what kind of a tone did Greenfield use? Can we find some examples of words or language that he used in his article that would tell us, was he trying to be funny? Was he being really neutral? Was he sad? Was he angry? Okay. What was the tone? And then a big one is going to be rhetorical strategies. And so some of you may have heard of these terms before, logos, ethos, and pathos, but these are terms you should be familiar with. And basically, these are the three appeals when we're writing arguments and we're trying to persuade somebody. If we're trying to be effective, we're probably going to use a little bit of all three. Logos is simply an appeal to logic, which would be statistics, facts, evidence, trying to give people facts that are not really our opinion. It's a truth, right? An ethos appeal is going to be more of an ethical appeal or credibility. So one thing you might think about is, who is this Jeff Greenfield guy? And why does he have the credibility to talk about this topic of television? Who is he? What are his credentials? Why is he a trustworthy person to listen to? Okay. And finally, pathos appeal, which is emotion. Is he being funny, sad, angry, nostalgic? Are there any images he presents in his article that would evoke emotions from the readers? Like, did any of you feel entertained or sad or happy when you were reading this article? And so those are the three major things that students are going to rely on for this upcoming essay. And you're going to have to try to identify examples of each one in his article, which you've already read and written a summary on, right? Okay. Another thing you can talk about in addition to logos, pathos, and ethos is, what organizational strategies did Greenfield possibly use? Did he make comparisons between television of the past and television of today? If so, he probably used comparison contrast, right? Did he talk about why television has changed or how? Then that might be a cause and effect situation. Did he go through television's history in a certain order? If so, maybe he used chronological organization, okay? So this packet, if you look at it pretty thoroughly between now and Sunday, will give you some ideas of the kinds of things that you're going to be focusing on in your essay, okay? So I know some of you in this live lecture may have already looked at this packet, and some of you maybe are still going to do that before tonight's assignments are due. But what questions do you guys have so far, now that I've just kind of given you a little bit of a preview or an overview? Do you guys have any questions so far about this packet that you're supposed to be reading by tonight? Any questions at all? Okay, I am going to go to the prompt for Essay 2, because you guys have to submit a basic outline by Sunday. And so I want to just make sure that we understand what you're going to be doing for that. So let me just get out of here. Okay. So Essay 2 guidelines. By Sunday, you guys have to submit something specific, and we'll go over what that is. But let's take a look at the prompt for this essay, okay? So the first thing, oh, and let me make sure that you guys can actually, you guys can see, can you now see, just type yes or no, can you see the rhetorical analysis essay number 2 prompt in front of you? So just yes or no helps me make sure that you guys are still with me. Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay. So again, maybe you've looked at this, maybe you haven't. This essay will probably be the most challenging essay we write this semester. Luckily, you guys are going to have a chance to revise it for a higher grade eventually, but this one takes a lot of work, because we're not just focusing on what the author's saying. You guys have written summaries on all 3 articles, so you've already learned how to talk about what the authors are saying. But now we're moving to what the authors are doing. What rhetorical moves were they making in their arguments, okay? The first thing you might want to do before Sunday is to go back to the second week, week 2, and just take a look at those handouts that we learned about, especially anatomy of an essay and MLA formatting, because you guys are going to have to write this formal paper. And anatomy of an essay reminds you guys a little bit about how should an introduction look? Okay, so by Sunday, you guys have to have an introduction paragraph written, and then you have to have a basic outline of what your body paragraphs are going to be about. So can you guys remember from Anatomy of an Essay, what are some basic qualities of a good introduction paragraph? Can you guys just type into your box something that you might remember from how to write an effective introduction in a college essay? Okay, so Rebecca's saying the thesis goes at the end. Absolutely, good. That is true. So because of that, we want to start general in the beginning, and Isabel correctly is saying start with a hook, right? Start with some interesting sentence to reel your reader in. So what you guys don't want to do for Sunday is you don't want to start your essay saying Greenfield wrote an article about blah, blah, blah. That's too specific, right? So why don't you guys just let me know, what is the basic topic of these 3 articles we read? Just give me one word, okay? What is the word that describes what all 3 of those articles were about that we read? Okay, so technology, but more specifically. Yes, technology, but specific television. Good. So what you guys are going to want to do for Sunday is start your essay with a hook about how television has changed. Then you will lead into the article that you're going to be discussing, which is Jeff Greenfield's article. You will include a brief summary of his article, which you guys are absolutely allowed to use what you've already written and turned in, okay? So you did that for homework. You can use some of those sentences for this essay. And then you're going to end your introduction with a thesis that describes what you're going to be doing in your essay. So if we take a look at this prompt, we can see here that you're going to be conducting a rhetorical analysis of Jeff Greenfield's article, okay? And you're going to be identifying and explaining why his argument was effective. So here's what your 3 to 5 body paragraphs are going to focus on, and you're going to decide which ones. So you could do a body paragraph on logos, pathos, ethos, whether he provides counter arguments or not, and his organizational strategies. These are your 5 choices. You only have to choose a minimum of 3. A lot of students like to just focus on these 3. It's easier to them, and that's okay, but you're also allowed to pick these 2 as well. So one of the things you're going to want to do for Sunday is just to get your introduction paragraph and your thesis completely written, and then decide of these 5 rhetorical analysis categories, which 3 to 5 are you going to plan on writing about and in which order. And that's really the minimum that I'm asking you to do for Sunday, is just to think about it. And so one thing you might want to do that would be really helpful is to go back through Greenfield's article and to start looking and seeing if you can identify these examples. And that way you can decide which of the 5 elements that you want to focus on in your essay, okay? Now, one really challenging thing for students about rhetorical analysis is that you're not supposed to talk about whether you agree or disagree with Greenfield. We're only evaluating whether he did an effective job including these appeals. So you're going to want to make sure for this essay that you avoid the following pronouns, I or you. You shouldn't be using that. Instead, your essay should always be 3rd person. Greenfield argues in his article, you know, things like that, okay? Eventually, you guys will have to incorporate some templates into your essay, of course, and this will be a 1,000 to 1,500 word essay, which is about 3 to 5 pages, okay? Okay. And so then let's just take a quick look for Sunday. And so you guys have your discussion, but then for Sunday, what exactly am I asking you to do? So for Sunday, now that you have read through the rhetorical analysis materials and the guidelines for Essay 2, type up an MLA formatted introduction and outline of this paper. And your introduction should be around 150 to 250 words. And like we just said, you're going to start with an attention grabber, which introduces the topic at hand. You're going to give me a brief summary or account of Greenfield's argument. And then what you have to add in that you didn't have to do in the summary before is you have to identify the author's tone, audience, and purpose. And those 3 things are located in the rhetorical analysis packet And so if you're not sure what I mean by that, you just have to review that, and then your job is to try to identify that. So what a lot of students do is they take their summary of Greenfield's article that they already wrote for homework, and then they just maybe condense it a little and add in these 3 things. And so you are allowed to use some of what you wrote for the summary for homework for this essay. That would not be plagiarism because I'm giving you permission. And then you're going to bold your thesis statement, which would hopefully be the last sentence of your introduction. And then for the outline part, like I said before, if you want, you can just simply have some bullet points saying, okay, body paragraph 1 is going to be about pathos, body paragraph 2 is going to be about ethos, and body paragraph 3 is going to be about logos. And that's all I'm asking you to do for Sunday, okay? And you can see the grading rubric. Make sure your document's MLA formatted. Please have a title. Have an introduction that starts with a hook and ends with a thesis. Make sure you bold your thesis, and then you've got to include what your 3 to 5 body paragraphs are going to be about, even if you're just bulleting the topics. You do not have to have the paragraphs written by Sunday unless you would like to get a head start, okay? So now we've gone over what you're supposed to be doing this weekend. And of course, it's going to involve you guys doing a couple of things, like number 1, definitely going over that rhetorical analysis packet, and number 2, you're going to have to review Greenfield's article. It would be really hard for you to write an introduction and outline if you don't go back and just review his article at least one more time, okay? And then finally, I'm going to show you guys one more thing, and that is a student sample. So this is written on a different article that you guys are not going to be doing for this essay, but you have read it. And that is Social Media Taking TV Back in Time by Manju. You read that one, remember? So here's an example of a student paper on that, just so you guys can see what I'm asking you to do for Sunday, and it'll make a little more sense, okay? So notice how the paper is MLA formatted. It includes the word count as the 5th line in the header. Notice how the title is very specific, rhetorical analysis of, and then we have the article in quotation marks, okay? Let's start with the hook. Social media has a commanding presence in our culture. It has taken communication, business, blogging, and even dating to a whole different level. It is no surprise that it is also transforming the television industry as well, okay? So see what a nice hook that is, because it's nice and general, but it also shows the students' understanding of how technology has been changing things, right? Then we get into the actual article, and you guys are going to be writing about Greenfield instead of Manju. But look at this part I'm highlighting. This is the whole summary, including Manju's purpose, tone, and audience. In Social Media Takes TV Back in Time, New York Times writer Farhad Manju asserts that social media has positively influenced the audience, the actors and producers, the television networks, and the television industry as a whole. He presents useful data and statistics to show that social media has created a communal experience for viewers. It has deepened the relationship between audience and writers, and it has increased ratings of many television series. Okay, now we're getting into this was like what was he talking about? Now we're getting into what was he doing, right? What are the moves he was making? Manju's purpose is to show that social media has elevated the television experience by creating a sense of community and interaction between the audience and the television industry as a whole. Okay, that's his purpose. What about tone and audience? Check this out. He adopts a friendly and confident tone to appeal to his tweeting, snapping, and Instagramming audience, particularly millennials, in order to bring light to the positive ways in which social media has added value to the television experience. So notice how for tone, the student said friendly and confident, okay? Notice how for audience, we don't just say, oh, you know, it's the general public. This student got really specific and identified that it's probably millennials, right? Finally, now this sentence for you guys should be bolded, right? So in your rough draft and your final draft, you're going to bold the sentence, which is your thesis. A close analysis of Manju's article will clarify which strategies and techniques he used to accomplish his purpose and how effective the strategies were employed. So again, you guys are going to be writing about Greenfield's article instead, but hopefully seeing this introduction from another student from a different semester really helps you guys understand the moves that you're going to make between now and Sunday when you turn your rough draft intro in. And then you do not need to have your body paragraphs written, but you can see here that this student, their first body paragraph is about Manju's appeal to logos, right? The second body paragraph is ethos, right? The third body paragraph, pathos. And then, of course, they're going to conclude. So eventually, that's what you're going to be turning in. That's the full gist of it, right? But hopefully giving you guys a little sneak peek is helpful, right? Just so you can kind of see what you're supposed to be doing for Sunday. Okay? All right. So that's pretty much the gist of what I wanted to talk about today. So now is a good time to see what questions and concerns that you guys have about anything I've said. So at this time, I'm going to invite you to type into the chat box a question or concern you have about anything I've said, anything I haven't said regarding what you're doing for this weekend. So go ahead, take your time, think about it, and we will address those questions together, because chances are if you have a question, somebody else could benefit from hearing the answer. So go ahead and type in your questions. And if you don't have any, you don't have to type anything in. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions or concerns at this time, so I'm going to stop the recording, and then I'm going to open it up to some one-on-one chats, okay?